Okay, so it turns out AE probably just made the best decision they've made in years. They've made AQ Lite an official part of Arctic's game launcher, which means you can have all the settings and amazing effects of AQ Lite whilst using the launcher. And 123 Spider, the creator himself, recommended you move over to Arctic's launcher because the AQ Lite won't work anymore. I mean, at the moment it's working fine, but I guess we'll see in the future. And there are also a bunch of other updates they did, such as the nerfs to the chrono classes and making the ultra bosses basically more powerful. I'll talk about that too. But firstly, I'm going to go over a couple of the settings in the new Arctic's launcher. And in fact, I'm actually using one of them now, as you can see, the world camera. And it's probably one of the better settings actually, which you can click right over here. So as soon as you get the launcher, there are a couple of settings that I recommend turning on, such as auto on target dead targets. It's just really useful for farming and it helps you get through a bit quicker. Auto on target self, definitely always turn it on, because if you're ever healing yourself with a skill, you don't want to target yourself. And chat filter, I'd recommend it on. It's pretty useful to have some of these things like timestamps over here and disabling red messaging. This is definitely worth it. I mean, if you're ever trying to chat at the same time as well as fighting, you're going to need this so that when you're spamming all your skills, your red messages won't pop up. And I'd also recommend putting on your class auras UI. When you turn it on, essentially what happens is, in fact I'll just show you. So I'll equip Lightcaster. As you can see, the 4 skill heals you. See this little thing over here on the side? Illuminated underneath my little character icon. This is the buff I get, and it shows how long it lasts for. So if you don't have this on already, just do it. I mean, it's for the better, I guess. And there are a couple of other important settings, such as you can turn on any of these to decrease lag, like disable monster animation on, disable skill animation on, sound effects on, weapon animation. You don't have to do this, but if you want to decrease lag, go for it. FPS, okay, this is probably one of my favorite settings. As you can see, I'm at 24 FPS right now. If you move about, it decreases a bit. 16. If I disable my cape, it increases a little bit. There you go. Slightly higher FPS without the cape because it had a bit of an animation, and so on. So after that, also recommend having. You can freeze monster position if you want, just for less lag and easier to handle monsters. Hide player names, and not that important. And finally, item drops blacklist. This is pretty important if there are some items you just don't want to have. You can just add items like treasure chests, which you don't want to accept when they drop. And finally, one of the most important settings, re-accept quest after turn-in on. Like, this is super useful if you're repeating a quest again and again. Also show monster type turn on, because you want to see what type of monster they are so you can have the correct weapon to have a damage boost against them. And finally, smooth background. Like, who doesn't want a smooth background? Oh, there are 2 marks I didn't go over. Camera tool and world camera. World camera is probably one of my favorites, as you can see. You can just zoom in, out without reducing quality. And for the camera tool, well, let me just show you now. Here we go. You can do your animations, and let me just zoom out a bit more. For example, as Lightcaster, click 4 skill, animation, more. I mean, you can just pretty much have fun with this, do whatever you want, I guess. Let me just show you some of the effects of these settings when you're actually playing, like when you're battling monsters. And I don't know if it's just me, but I think it's decreased lag in general, just having the launcher instead of the usual AQ Lite. So you haven't moved over to the launcher yet, I definitely recommend it. Okay, here we are. So I'm going to spam a couple of skills on this monster, and as you can see, no red messages in the chat, none. No red messages. And when I heal myself, no self-targeting. So you can see how useful it can be when you're playing, and I just highly recommend turning on those settings. Okay, so as most of you know, by now, the ultra bosses have been buffed a bit. So if you're trying to nuke it with a calendar class like CDK, it's going to take a lot less damage. You can nuke for 100k damage without your damage being decreased, but once you go over that, your damage will only increase by small amounts. And so it's just not as viable of a strategy for the Ultra Engineer. I'd still recommend using CDK or any chrono classes for Ultra Ezreal and the Ultra Warden. Those are still probably the best strategies for those two. But once you get to the Ultra Engineer, whole story is different. And you know what, let's look at the design notes real quick to see what the AE actually have to say about this. So as you can see over here, Alina made a post about all the class balances. She said that these changes were still deep in testing and some of these classes will be reverted, such like Time Killer, so that's good news, but there will also be a bunch of class changes here. So for Chrono Corruptor, Dragon of Time, Frost Spirit Reaver, Infinity Knight, Sentinel, Shadow Book of Time, Vindicator, and Void High Lord. I mean, some of these look like they could be really good, like Chrono Corruptor. I'm sure that's a buff because Chrono Corruptor is probably one of the weakest calendar classes. Dragon of Time, Spirit Reaver, can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure Dragon of Time will probably get a buff. And hopefully Soul Infinity Knight, which is literally the weakest calendar class in the game. I mean, I literally made a video about how bad it is. And Shadow Walker of Time, addressing an unintentional damage scaling mechanic. Oof, like, I guess that means they're probably going to remove the infinite scaling mechanic on Shadow Walker of Time. I mean, first they removed the glitch rooms, now they've removed this. I mean, they're going to. I guess RIP Shadow Walker. I mean, we don't know how bad it's going to be yet, so I can't judge, but I guess we'll see. And Vindicator of the old PvP class, and Void High Lord, the most important change probably out of all of these. Now, I can't say whether it's going to be a buff or a nerf, because on one hand, they may be a buff because the calendar classes have made it obsolete and just a bit useless now. But at the same time, it's one of the most powerful soloing classes, so it seems strange to buff it anymore. So it could be nerf. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. And so back to the Ultra bosses, I guess. So as I was saying, Ultra Engineer, a lot harder to kill now. I saw a video by another AQW YouTuber, his name was Seiji, I think. And he made a quick video trying to kill the bosses after the nerf to the classes. And his strategy for Ultra Engineer was pretty good, I think. It was like 2 Legion Revenants, a Stone Crusher, and a Lord of Order. And it seemed to work pretty well. So credit him for that idea. And so I guess the main strategy now is double Legion Revenants for the drones and 2 support classes like Stone Crusher and Lord of Order. Let me know how it works for you guys in the comments below. I mean, I haven't got the Exalted weapon yet either, so I'm going to have to try it out later. And let me know what you guys think of the changes in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and like the video.